For 3 years, Victoria Vance and I were what our friends called the model couple. I always believed that I was her everything. That is, until her first love returned from abroad and became my colleague, competing with me for a promotion. She secretly gave him my design drafts, which led to me being publicly shamed for plagiarism. When I confronted her, she even tried to convince me to let it go. Ethan isn't like you, Sincere. He needs a strong piece of work to establish himself at the company more than you do. In that moment, I knew this was the end of the road for us. Inside the romantically decorated restaurant, I anxiously stared at my chat with Victoria. Tonight was my girlfriend Victoria's birthday. To prepare this surprise for her, I had booked the restaurant a week in advance, and every dish had been chosen according to her tastes. But I had been waiting from 7 p.m. to 10 p.m., and the waiter had already asked for the third time if he should serve the food. All the messages I sent her had vanished into thin air without a single reply. My anxiety turned to worry. Just as I was about to call her, I saw that Ethan Cross, whom I had recently added as a friend on social media, had posted an update. Remembering his past with Victoria, my finger, which had been about to move away, tapped on the post. A photo of Victoria and Ethan filled the screen. Victoria was holding a cake with a blissful expression while Ethan was placing a birthday hat on her head, looking at her with eyes full of affection. The caption read, "Happy birthday." My little girl, seeing that post, my gaze froze, and a dull ache spread through my chest. No wonder my messages had gone unanswered. Victoria was with her first love, Ethan. Victoria's best friend, Chloe Jones, had liked the post and left a playful comment, "What a power couple." Even my colleagues were commenting, asking if they were back together. The waiter approached again, asking if I wanted him to start bringing the food. I snapped back to reality, liked the post, and said in a slightly hoarse voice, "Yes, you can bring out the food." The second I liked the post, a message from Victoria popped up. "Class reunion tonight. I'll be home late." A dozen exquisite dishes were laid out on the table, but I had no appetite. I called the waiter over, took the packed-up leftovers, and left the restaurant. It wasn't until 1 a.m. that Victoria finally came home. As she stood outside the door, I could hear her saying goodbye to Ethan. A while later, she opened the door and walked in. I had just stepped out of the bedroom when a tipsy Victoria stumbled into my arms, reeking of alcohol mixed with a strong scent of men's cologne. "Sincere, were you waiting for me?" Victoria hugged my waist, her tone full of affection, but I wasn't fooled by the act. Victoria had a high tolerance for alcohol. When she was truly drunk, she was quiet, nothing like this. I gently pushed her away and, sure enough, saw a flash of clarity in her eyes. I let go once she was steady and looked her straight in the face. "Did you not get the messages I sent you this afternoon?" She dodged the question. "It was a class reunion today. You don't know any of those people. You would have felt awkward, so I didn't ask you to come." Sensing her deliberately changing the subject, my expression turned cold. "You promised me you would keep your distance from Ethan Cross." A flicker of annoyance crossed Victoria's face, and her tone became aggressive. "Sincere Clark, can you not be so petty? Ethan and I were classmates. It would be awkward for everyone if we were too distant. Or is it that you just don't trust our relationship at all with that?" Victoria turned and went into the bathroom. Steam soon filled the air. Chapter 2. Over the sound of the shower, I saw Victoria's phone left on the table light up twice. In our 3 years together, I had never once looked through her phone. But this time, on an impulse I couldn't explain, I picked it up. I easily guessed her password. The messages were from Ethan, who had just left. "Don't forget to take some medicine for your hangover or you'll have a headache tomorrow. I had a great time tonight. See you tomorrow. Ugh.jpg." Scrolling up, I saw messages of Victoria begging Ethan to celebrate her birthday with her. "Ethan, will you celebrate my birthday with me this year? If I do, will your boyfriend get angry? It's fine, he has to work overtime. I'll invite some old classmates too, so he won't be mad." 3 simple messages, yet they made me freeze on the spot. I had waited for her at the restaurant all night, yet she told someone else I was working overtime and couldn't be with her. As I scrolled further up, I saw that their chat history covered nearly every day since Ethan had returned to the country. The little things that only couples share were now being shared with Ethan. Looking at their conversations, I could feel how dismissive she had been in her chats with me. Ethan was Victoria's first love from college. In their senior year, Ethan received an offer to study abroad, which led to a disagreement and their breakup. Victoria's friends, unable to see her so lost, took her to a singles party. That's where Victoria and I met. She was my type, and I started pursuing her right after we met. I pursued her for a whole year before she finally agreed to be my girlfriend. Although I knew she had a first love, I never cared. I always thought that getting over someone was just a matter of time. Besides, I believed my sincerity would win her heart. Over these 3 years, Victoria and I became the model couple among our friends, which made me more and more confident in our relationship. I had even bought an engagement ring, planning to propose to her on her birthday tonight. That all changed when Ethan returned not long ago. Victoria took a day off to pick him up from the airport. In the following days, she was busy helping him rent an apartment and find a job. In the end, Ethan was hired by the same company as us, in the same position as me. Less than a month after Ethan joined, rumors about him and Victoria began to circulate in the office. All these years, to prevent our office romance from affecting our work, none of our colleagues knew that Victoria and I were a couple. And when Victoria heard the rumors about her and Ethan, she would just smile and tell everyone not to joke around. She had told me that she and Ethan were ancient history, but eyes can't lie. The moment Ethan appeared, I knew she was still in love with him, perhaps even more than she loved me. Chapter 3. The next morning I heard Victoria cheerfully calling me to get up for breakfast, as if last night's unpleasantness had never happened. On the table were 2 rather unappetizing-looking breakfast plates. I walked past her and took last night's leftovers out of the fridge. "Why didn't you tell me you packed up the food? I wouldn't have wasted my morning cooking then." My eyes fell on the 2 burnt pieces of toast and 2 blackened fried eggs on the table. I didn't want to comment on how much effort she had put into making them. After we got together, Victoria would often send me videos asking me to treat her like the men in them. Because I loved her, I treated her better and better, to the point where she rarely ever set foot in the kitchen. Turning to look at the awkwardly chattering Victoria, a sarcastic smile formed on my lips. "These are the leftovers from the dinner you skipped last night. You knew about them, didn't you?" Victoria, who had been trying to make small talk, suddenly froze, her throat tightening as if gripped by something. After a long pause, she finally offered a stiff explanation. "Believe it or not, I'm only helping him out of respect for our past. Other than that, nothing is going on." We finished breakfast in silence and went to the office one after the other. When Victoria walked into the office, our colleagues immediately started teasing her. Some gathered around her, probing. "Victoria, I heard you and Ethan Cross used to be a couple. If you 2 get back together, you have to invite us to the wedding." I happened to hear that as I walked into the office. Victoria saw me from across the crowd and quickly waved her hands in denial. "That's all in the past. We're just ordinary friends now." Her explanation was drowned out by the chorus of teasing. Everyone had seen how close she and Ethan had been recently. A simple denial wouldn't convince anyone. When she turned to look back at where I had been standing, I was already gone, back at my desk. The situation with Victoria and Ethan was giving me a splitting headache. But soon I had no time to think about it. A management position had opened up due to a departmental shuffle. To compete for the position, besides other requirements, each candidate had to submit a design proposal. I had been waiting for a promotion opportunity for the 3 years I had been with the company. After hearing the news, I poured all my energy into preparing my design. The atmosphere in the office grew quiet, the daily gossip replaced by focused work. After several rounds of selection, only 3 frontrunners remained. A senior employee who had been with the company for 4 years, me, and the talented returnee, Ethan Cross. Over the next 2 weeks after Victoria's reassurances, we returned to our previously loving state. To help me focus on my design, Victoria took over all the household chores and encouraged me every day. But the issue with her and Ethan remained a knot in my heart that never went away. As the end of the month drew closer, my design draft was nearly complete. One night, as I was about to finish the final draft, I suddenly got a call from my family. Learning that my dad was in the hospital for surgery, I hastily packed up my half-finished final draft. Just then, Victoria pushed open the door. She pushed me towards the door with a look of concern. "Sincere, if it's an emergency, you should go. I'll lock up. Don't worry about the design." Chapter 4. With no time to think, I rushed out of the house and went to the hospital. Fortunately, it was a minor surgery, and he was discharged after 2 days. I managed to finalize my design and submit it before the deadline. But not long after I submitted it, Rumors began to spread through the company that I had plagiarized my work. Seeing the strange looks from my colleagues, I stopped one of them to ask what was going on. The colleague I stopped looked at me with disdain. "Mr. Clark, this promotion is a rare opportunity, I get it. But even if you weren't confident you'd win, you shouldn't have copied Ethan Cross's design." Plagiarism? The design I submitted was something I had spent half a month painstakingly developing. It was the result of so much of my hard work. And now it was being called plagiarism? I could hear my colleagues whispering around me. As expected, the guy who studied abroad is more capable. The results aren't out yet, but there's a rumor that Ethan Cross is the one who won. I don't know what Mr. Clark was thinking. Even if he missed this chance, with his skills, he would have definitely gotten promoted next time. But he had to ruin his reputation by plagiarizing. Once the results are official, he probably won't be able to stay at the company. One disdainful look after another condemned me, carving my name on a pillar of shame. Hearing the contemptuous whispers, I stormed into the manager's office. Mr. Miller didn't seem surprised to see me, and Ethan was already there, having arrived before me. The moment I saw Ethan, I wanted to punch him in the face, but I held back, wanting to first ask if there had been some misunderstanding. Before I could say a word, Mr. Miller, sitting in his chair, spoke with a look of disappointment. "See for yourself." On his desk were 2 design drafts. I looked down and saw my final version, and next to it the missing last preliminary draft, only that draft had been refined. Seeing that drawing, I remembered what had happened the other night. After returning from the hospital, I wanted to finish the final draft, but after searching for a long time, I couldn't find the last preliminary draft. I even asked Victoria about it, but she just said she had stacked all my drafts together and didn't know one was missing. But now, looking at the recovered draft, it was all clear. Victoria had taken my design and given it to Ethan. At that thought, I could no longer control my anger and threw a punch at Ethan's face. "Sincere Clark, I haven't even dealt with you for plagiarizing my design. And you have the nerve to hit me." Ethan dodged and stumbled back, crashing into the office door, revealing a crowd of gossiping colleagues outside. Finally, security arrived and broke up the chaos. But after the commotion, everyone was convinced that I had plagiarized Ethan's idea. I wanted Victoria to tell the truth, only to find out she had taken the day off. As I was ordered to take a leave of absence, Ethan shot me a triumphant look. I grabbed my final design from the desk and left the company amidst the mocking gazes of everyone. Victoria's phone was off and I couldn't reach her, so I had to go home first. The first thing I did when I got home was to carefully hide all my preliminary drafts. A minute after I finished, Victoria and her best friend Chloe Jones walked in, arm in arm, laughing and talking. Seeing me at home, Victoria stopped dead in her tracks. "Chloe, I need to talk to Sincere about something. Let's catch up another time." Chloe gave us a puzzled look, but seeing our grim expressions, she quickly left. Victoria immediately closed the door and walked towards me, her face a mask of appeasement. "Sincere, why are you home at this hour?" I forcefully shoved her hand off my clothes, feeling the anger suffocating me. "My design." "You stole it and gave it to Ethan." Victoria glanced at me quickly, then took a deep breath and explained, "Ethan just got back to the country. He needs a strong piece of work to get a firm footing at the company. He's not like you. With your talent, even if you miss this opportunity, there will be plenty more chances for promotion. Once he's promoted, he definitely won't forget your help." Chapter 5. Staring at Victoria and her twisted logic, I felt like I was meeting her for the first time. For a designer like me, the accusation of plagiarism was enough to destroy everything I had ever worked for. Forget about waiting for another promotion, I would likely be fired, and the stain of plagiarism would follow me for the rest of my career. I opened the company's group chat and shoved the phone in her face. Dozens of messages were mocking me for plagiarism. "Do you have any idea that what you did could ruin me?" Victoria pushed the phone away, still trying to justify herself. "No, it won't. Ethan promised me. He said he wouldn't press the plagiarism issue and the company won't do anything to you." The moment I heard that, an overwhelming exhaustion washed over me. I gritted my teeth and said, "Victoria, it's not about him not pressing the issue. It's about me pressing it." Now I slumped onto the sofa, all strength gone, but my voice was firm. "Victoria, let's break up." Her eyes widened in disbelief. "You want to break up with me?" Sincere Clark, have you forgotten what you said when you were pursuing me? I had pursued her for a year, making countless promises to show her my sincerity. But that didn't mean I would let her trample on my feelings without consequence. Since Ethan was the most important person in her heart, then I would let her go and return her to him. Victoria trembled with rage, as if I was the one who had betrayed her. But the one who had betrayed our relationship was clearly her. I looked at her, now irrational with anger, and sneered, "Isn't this what you wanted?" At my retort, Victoria screamed and lunged at me. I grabbed her flailing hands. She had just gotten her nails done. If she had hit me, my face would have been scratched to pieces. I gripped her wrists and pushed her away forcefully. She didn't expect me to use force and stumbled, falling to the floor. When she looked up, her eyes were filled with tears. "Sincere Clark, don't you dare regret this." Regret? My only regret was trusting her too much, which is why I was now bearing the shame of a plagiarist. Watching Victoria storm out the door, I couldn't help but laugh bitterly. All these years, everything I had done for her couldn't compare to her first love. Shortly after she left, I forced myself to calm down and started thinking of a way to turn the tables. They stole my design and framed me for plagiarism. I couldn't just let it go. I still had my other drafts, but if I just took them to the company, Ethan would likely deny everything. After contacting a couple of friends, I managed to get the number of a private investigator. The truth will always come out. If they did it, they would eventually slip up. After leaving, Victoria went crying to Ethan, complaining that I didn't understand her. Ethan comforted her and let her stay with him. That night, after calming down, Victoria came back home. The first thing she said to me was a defiant question, asking if I had come to my senses. If I apologized, she would stay. Her words were met with a cold laugh from me. Seeing that I was still unrepentant, Victoria grabbed her essential belongings and stormed out again. Chapter 6. Her departure didn't stir a single shred of sadness in me. I immediately contacted a real estate agency, started looking for a new place, and informed the landlord I was terminating the lease. Over the next few days, the private investigator followed Victoria and Ethan, trying to find evidence of the theft. Meanwhile, I moved all my belongings to my new apartment. As for Victoria's things, I hired a moving company to pack them all up and send them to Ethan's place. The moment she received her belongings, Victoria called me in a frenzy. I answered out of habit, only to be met with her furious yelling. I hung up immediately. I didn't answer any of her subsequent calls or reply to her messages. Seeing her frantically trying to contact me, I was reminded of her birthday, of how anxious I had been when I couldn't reach her. Unable to get in touch with me, Victoria went back to our old apartment, only to find it empty, with a "for rent" sign on the door. It was only then that Victoria finally realized I wasn't just angry. I was serious about breaking up with her. When she received no reply from me, her anxiety slowly turned into anger. "You want to break up? Fine, Sincere Clark. Even if you come begging me on your knees to get back together, I will never forgive you." Reading that message, I felt like I was looking at a joke. My years of accommodating her had made her greatly overestimate her place in my heart. If I got concrete evidence of what she did, I would call the police, not even consider showing mercy. In the following days, I still hadn't obtained the evidence needed to nail Ethan. Instead, I learned quite a bit about their private life. After I sent all of Victoria's things to Ethan's place, the two officially started living together. Since Ethan rented a studio apartment, it wasn't long before they were sharing a bed. Ethan was smugly triumphant about Victoria's devotion to him. Soon enough, his arrogance began to show in their daily life. Ethan considered himself the man of the house, and now that there was a woman living there, he pushed all the chores onto Victoria. But when she was with me, I never let her do any of those things. The meals Victoria cooked were either burnt or culinary disasters. She never did any housework on her own initiative. At first, when she messed things up, she would blame herself for being clumsy. But Ethan's reaction was nothing like she expected. Looking at the inedible breakfast, Ethan lost his temper. With a look of disgust, he threw the breakfast she had prepared into the trash. "How can you not even do something this simple? Were you like this when you lived with Sincere Clark?" Startled by the sudden accusation, Victoria blurted out, "Sincere never let me cook." Ethan sneered, stood up, and walked out, leaving a stunned Victoria behind. "I'm eating out. You can have this garbage you made yourself." Arguments like this became more and more frequent. The triumphant look Victoria had when she dared me to beg for her forgiveness was gone. I had no intention of interfering. This was her choice, and she had to bear the consequences, whatever they were. Chapter 7. Since I hadn't produced any evidence to prove my innocence, the company decided to fire me after a 2-week suspension. Along with the news of my termination came the announcement of Ethan's promotion. The two pieces of news, released together, sent the private company group chat into a frenzy. Sincere Clark was one bad apple that almost spoiled the bunch. Good thing the company fired him. I say they should have written the reason for his termination on his severance papers. People like him don't deserve to be in this industry. The insults came one after another, too fast to read. Once the scrolling slowed down, Ethan pretended to be the peacemaker. Sincere Clark has already paid the price for his actions. I hope everyone can stop criticizing him. His statement was met with a new wave of praise for him. Reading those messages, my fists clenched. I never expected the tables to turn so quickly. The day after Ethan's promotion was announced, the private investigator sent me a video. It showed Victoria and Ethan at a restaurant. Halfway through their meal, Ethan received a call and was in a hurry to leave. Victoria, hearing a woman's voice on the other end, refused to let him go. Perhaps thinking no one was paying attention, they argued without lowering their voices. "Who are you going to see?" Victoria grabbed Ethan's arm, staring intently at his face. A flash of annoyance crossed his face. He tried to shake her off but underestimated her persistence. When he didn't answer, she kept asking, determined to get to the bottom of it. "You came to me as soon as you returned to the country. Why is a woman calling you?" Ethan's expression turned icy. He pried her fingers off him one by one. "Victoria, you're overstepping." But those words caused the last thread of her composure to snap. Even through the video, I could read the emotion in her eyes. After our falling out, she had been living with Ethan, but their life together was far from happy. Every time Ethan got angry with her, it reminded her of how good I had been to her. But she couldn't admit she was wrong. So Ethan had to be good to her, to prove that what she did for him was not a mistake. Victoria stared at Ethan in disbelief for a few seconds. Just as he was about to leave, his patience worn thin, she suddenly picked up the bowl of hot soup that had just been served and threw it at him. "I'm overstepping. I'm your girlfriend, why can't I? Don't forget who was running around helping you when you came back. If I hadn't given you Sincere Clark's design, you wouldn't have gotten that promotion." The moment she finished speaking, a slap landed on her face. Instantly, a red handprint appeared on her cheek. Before she could say anything else, Ethan covered her mouth and dragged her out of the restaurant. Chapter 8. I made a copy of the video and sent it to my former manager. When I didn't get a reply, I took the original video and my old design drafts to the police station to file a report. When I walked into the company with the police, everyone stared in shock. Mr. Miller, who had received my message but hadn't replied, turned pale the moment he saw the police. When he learned that I was the one who had called them, and why they were there, he shot me a sharp glare. He quickly put on a friendly smile. "It's just a small conflict between employees. There's no need to involve the police. Officers, perhaps you should go. I can handle this." The police officer looked at me, waiting for my response. Since I was the one who filed the report, they would only leave if I agreed to a private settlement. Under Mr. Miller's hopeful gaze, I refused firmly. "Mr. Miller, please ask Ethan Cross and Victoria Vance to come here. After all, this involves them too." The eavesdropping crowd gasped at my firm stance. Seeing that I wouldn't agree to a private settlement, the smile vanished from Mr. Miller's face. A few moments later, Ethan and Victoria walked in. When he saw me, Ethan still had a look of contempt, as if he were looking at a loser. But when they saw the police officers standing behind me, their expressions turned to panic. "Sincere Clark, you still have the nerve to show your face at the company? I already said I wouldn't press the plagiarism issue. What more do you want?" Hearing his blustering, I let out a cold laugh and played the video on my phone. The moment the video started, Ethan's shouting stopped. I had turned the volume up to the maximum so everyone outside the office could hear it clearly. The sound of the video was mixed with whispers, but this time the subjects of the gossip were Ethan and Victoria. Victoria had been hiding behind Ethan since I took out the video. Ethan looked at me in disbelief, unable to understand how his argument with Victoria from the day before had ended up on video in my hands. I took out all my design drafts. Victoria helped Ethan steal my design and then framed me as the plagiarist. I looked at the panicked Ethan and demanded, "What I have here are my design concepts and all the process drawings. The design you submitted couldn't have just appeared out of thin air, could it?" Ethan was already at a loss. Without thinking, he retorted, "That's mine, you stole my drafts." Chapter 9. Hearing him say that, a smile finally bloomed on my face. Because that was exactly what I was waiting for him to say. If he had insisted that he didn't keep his drafts or that he drew the final version directly, I might have had to work harder to make him confess. But with that one sentence, he had sealed his own fate. I took a step back, collected my drafts, and replied with a cold smile, "If I stole them, then my fingerprints shouldn't be the only ones on these drafts." Ethan froze, realizing he had walked right into my trap. He tried to say something else, but I didn't give him the chance. I handed the drafts to the police. "Officers, please check whose fingerprints are on these drawings. Also, until the results are out, I hope my design will not be used by the company." After the police left, Mr. Miller's face was completely black. A glass shattered at my feet as he yelled at me, "Sincere Clark, what is the meaning of this? The company nurtured you for 3 years, and this is how you repay us?" I kicked away a piece of glass that had landed on my shoe. I found his words ridiculous. They just gave me a job. What nurturing was he talking about? I'm just clearing my name. I turned and left the company. The whispers behind me finally faded as I walked away. But just as I reached the parking lot, Victoria caught up to me. I hadn't seen her in 2 weeks. In person, she looked even worse than she did in the video. I kept my distance from her, my tone formal. "What is it?" A flash of hurt crossed her eyes. "Sincere Clark, do you not care about me at all?" I found her question both bizarre and laughable, but I indulged her curiosity. I did care, but when you and Ethan started getting closer, my feelings for you started to fade. Victoria shook her head, as if she didn't want to hear it. She mumbled to herself, "I didn't mean for this to happen. Ethan begged me for help, and I thought you wouldn't miss this one opportunity, so I agreed." Then she fumbled in her pockets and pulled out a ring, slipping it onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. "Look, you left this behind. I accept your proposal. Let's get back together." She spoke in a rushed, frantic tone, her eyes turning red. I was stunned for a moment when I saw the ring. After I moved out, the ring I had planned to propose to her with had gone missing. I didn't think much of it at the time. She was gone, so the ring didn't matter. I never expected it to be with her. I took her hand, the one with the ring, and under her hopeful gaze I pulled the ring off and threw it as far as I could. My ring. Victoria took a few steps in the direction I had thrown it, then turned back. Tears streamed down her face, her voice choked with sobs. "Sincere, don't you love me? Why can't you just give me one more chance?" Chapter 10. There was a look of confusion in her eyes, as if she genuinely couldn't understand. I looked at her coldly, unmoved by her tears. "Loving you doesn't mean you can treat me like a fool." "Victoria, you're the one who pushed me away. You played a huge part in getting us to where we are now." With that, I got in my car and drove away. In the rearview mirror, I saw her stumble. Ethan ran out of the company building, grabbed her by the shoulders, and seemed to be yelling something while pointing in my direction. Then Victoria crouched on the ground, holding her head and crying. After I turned the corner, I could no longer see them in the mirror. After leaving the company, Ethan called, trying to get me to drop the case. I replied with a simple impossible and blocked his number. While scrolling through my phone, I noticed that the old private company group chat was active again. This time, the person being discussed was Ethan. I can't believe there's a plot twist to this drama. Sincere and Victoria kept their relationship so secret. 3 years and no one at the company knew. But is she crazy? Helping her ex-boyfriend steal her current boyfriend's design? What's in it for her? Old flames die hard, what else could it be? A bunch of fair-weather friends. What they would talk about was entirely predictable. I just left the group chat. A few days after I handed the design drafts to the police, the results came in. Only my and Victoria's fingerprints were on the drawings. Victoria and Ethan were taken to the police station for questioning in front of all their colleagues. This could have been a minor issue, but I was firm about pressing charges. Since Ethan had used my design to get a promotion, it constituted profiting from plagiarism. During the investigation, Victoria and Ethan blamed each other. In the end, because of that video where Ethan said, "When did I ever say you were my girlfriend?" Victoria successfully shifted all the blame onto him. Ethan was found guilty of not only emotionally manipulating Victoria into committing theft, but also using the stolen material for personal gain. However, since he hadn't actually received any financial benefit from the promotion yet, he was only fined and sentenced to 3 months in detention. But the label of plagiarist and this criminal record would follow him for the rest of his life. As for Victoria, she was released after being reprimanded by the police. After the verdict, with the police as witnesses, The company returned the design submitted by Ethan to me. When I left the company for the last time, I glanced at my former colleagues. Not a single one of them dared to meet my eye. I turned and walked away without looking back, feeling the weight of the past few weeks finally lift. Chapter 11. After the matter was resolved, I didn't dwell on it. The resumes I had sent out after being fired all received responses. All 3 companies I interviewed with offered me a position. In the end, I chose a more renowned company in the industry, which meant moving to another city. After accepting the offer and setting a start date, I began preparing to leave. The night before I left, news of my departure somehow got out. Some of my former colleagues contacted me pretending to share news. From them, I learned that both Ethan and Victoria had been fired. These people, knowing I had landed a job at a top company, all claimed they had defended me when I was falsely accused, hoping we could stay in touch and that I could maybe give them an internal referral someday. I rejected them all without a second thought. If they couldn't help me in my time of need, I didn't need them to celebrate my success. On the day of my departure, I ran into Victoria at the airport. She looked like she had made an effort to dress up, but she couldn't hide the exhaustion and dark circles under her eyes. Seeing me, she hesitated before approaching. "Sincere, I heard you were leaving. I came to see you off." Her hands were clenched tightly, as if it took all her courage to say those words. I looked at her, my expression unchanged, and thanked her in a calm voice. She seemed to have something to say, but since she didn't speak, I didn't ask. The boarding announcement came on. I pulled my suitcase and took a step forward. Victoria followed closely behind me. At the boarding gate, I stopped. The past is the past. I'm not going to hold on to it. I heard her breath catch, a hint of joy in her voice, so I cut her off. "That's why I can say goodbye to you calmly now, but that's all. Victoria, this is it. Let's part on good terms." After saying that, I walked through the gate without looking back. So I didn't see Victoria, who, at my last words, broke down into uncontrollable sobs. The plane took off, and the world below grew smaller and smaller. I was leaving this city behind, heading toward a new future. At the airport, Victoria watched until Sincere's back completely disappeared from view before turning to leave. A plane streaked across the sky above, and fresh tears streamed down her face. In her hand, she clutched the ring Sincere had thrown away. After he left that day, she had spent 3 hours searching the parking lot before she finally found it, but the ring was already bent out of shape, just like her relationship with Sincere, which could never go back to what it was. There was once someone who treated her so well, but because of her own greed, she had lost him. Victoria had a feeling that she would never again meet someone who would treat her as well as Sincere once had.